In an ancient society dominated by male rulers, fate placed her as the only female emperor in Vietnam's history. Unlike Wu Zetian, China's only empress who ruled the Zhou dynasty with authority, this young and naive girl ascended the throne in innocence and lost it almost as soon as she gained it. Her name was Chiêu Hoàng, the only Empress Regnant of Vietnam. By the early 13th century, the Lý dynasty had ruled Đại Việt, the ancient name of Vietnam, for more than 200 years. History shows that no dynasty, no matter how strong or stable, lasts forever. The Lý dynasty was no exception. Once marked by a golden age of economic stability and cultural flourishing, the dynasty had entered a period of decline. Emperor Lý Huệ-tông suffered from mental illness and was unable to effectively govern the country. His condition contributed to internal turmoil, weakened the royal court, and accelerated the erosion of imperial authority. As a result, real political power gradually shifted away from the emperor into the hands of influential court officials. Among them was Trần Thủ Độ, a key political figure whose family controlled the military and dominated much of the court's decision-making. Later, Emperor Lý Huệ-tông was forced to abdicate the throne. Having no son to succeed him, his second daughter, Chiêu Hoàng, was chosen as his successor. However, behind this decision stood the political mastermind Trần Thủ Độ. Even after ascending the throne, Chiêu Hoàng authority remained tightly controlled. Real power lay in the hands of her mother, Trần Thị Dung, a member of the Trần clan. Her attendants were also carefully selected by Trần Thủ Độ, ensuring that those closest to the young empress all belonged to the Trần family. Among them was Trần Cảnh, Trần Thủ Độ nephew. As children, they interacted innocently, and when it became known that the Empress Regnant appeared to hold affection for the boy, Trần Thủ Độ immediately seized the opportunity. A marriage between Chiêu Hoàng and Trần Cảnh was secretly arranged without the presence of court officials or members of the Lý royal family. At the time, both children were only 7 years old. Citing the traditional belief that a young girl was incapable of ruling the country, Chiêu Hoàng was compelled to abdicate the throne in favor of her newlywed husband. Trần Cảnh therefore became the first emperor of the Trần dynasty, bringing an end to the 216-year reign of the Lý dynasty. In just 7 years of life, Chiêu Hoàng passed from princess to Empress Regnant and finally to an empress consort without ever holding real power of her own. However, the young empress endured tragedies far greater than being blamed for the fall of the once prosperous Lý dynasty. Her father, Lý Huệ-tông, was ordered to commit suicide, and many members of the Lý royal family were executed amid fears that they might challenge the authority of the newly established Trần dynasty, all done under the direction of Trần Thủ Độ. Former Emperor Lý Huệ-tông, shortly before he was forced to take his own life, bitterly swore, "The empire has already fallen into your hands, and yet you still kill me. I die today, but even after that, I know your descendants will one day meet the same end." In a striking parallel, members of the Trần royal family were later persecuted and eliminated, just as the Lý family had been decades earlier. The suffering did not end there. Chiêu Hoàng also witnessed her mother, Trần Thị Dung, remarry Trần Thủ Độ, the political architect behind the downfall of the Lý dynasty, and the man whose actions had led to the deaths of her father and relatives. A few years later, when Chiêu Hoàng was only 19, an age that could be considered far too young by modern standards to bear the burden of dynastic succession, she was condemned as incapable of producing an heir for the Trần dynasty. Historical records suggest that Chiêu Hoàng did bear a child with Trần Cảnh, but the child died very early, leaving no heir. Once again, Trần Thủ Độ intervened with ruthless decisiveness. He forced Emperor Trần Cảnh, Trần Thái Tông, to take Princess Thuận Thiên, Chiêu Hoàng elder sister, as his new wife, even though Thuận Thiên was already pregnant with a child of Trần Cảnh elder brother. In protest against this violation of both morality and kinship, Trần Cảnh withdrew to Yên Tử mountain, intending to renounce the throne and become a monk. However, Chen Tu compelled his return by declaring that wherever the emperor went, the imperial court would follow. Left with no alternative, Chen Kang returned to the capital, married Princess Tian, and proclaimed her empress. Li Chiu-Huang was stripped of her title and reduced to a princess once more, marking another irreversible loss in a life repeatedly reshaped by political ambition beyond her control. After being erased from the center of power, Li Chiu-Huang vanished from official politics, but not from suffering. Reduced from empress to princess, she lived on the margins of a court that once revolved around her, watching history unfold without her voice. For years, she lived in silence until history intervened once more. During the Mongol invasions, a military commander named Le Fu-chen distinguished himself through extraordinary bravery. As a reward, Chen Kang arranged his marriage to Li Chiu-Huang. Only then, after a lifetime of being used as a political tool, did she enter a marriage that was not born of conspiracy. With Le Fu-chen, Li Chiu-Huang finally experienced what history had long denied her, a family of her own. She bore children, proving that the accusation that had ruined her life, that she was incapable of bearing an heir, had never been true. The tragedy was not her body, but the impatience and cruelty of power. Li Chiu-Huang spent the rest of her life far from the throne she once held, dying quietly in 1278 at the age of 61. No grand monuments were built in her honor. Even in death, Li Chiu-Huang was separated from the dynasty she was born to rule. Unlike the emperors of the Li dynasty, who were buried together in their ancestral mausoleum, her tomb lies elsewhere, isolated, modest, and distant from the imperial resting grounds. For centuries, Li Chiu-Huang has been criticized for ending the Li dynasty, her name often reduced to a symbol of collapse. However, this judgment is profoundly unfair. In truth, she was only a child, 7 years old, caught in the middle of a violently unstable political transition. She was not a failed ruler. She was a victim of a system that never allowed women to rule at all.